Okay, well, we'll try to keep things on time. I see that we're still getting some folks in from the waiting room and logging in, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation on community solar. We're just so glad that you're here. My name is Susie Spiegelman. I'm Director of Partnerships at Clean Energy Trust. For those of you who are new to CET, at the highest level, we invest in and support emerging climate technology startups from across the Midwest region of the United States. Additionally, we host a variety of events and programming throughout the year meant to build the climate tech ecosystem, welcoming folks like you to learn about the industry, support our mission, and help scale emerging climate technologies. Before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge everyone who supports Clean Energy Trust. We're so grateful to all of our members and donors. They're the reason we're here. They empower us to do the meaningful work that we do. I'd especially like to call out ENGIE North America, who is participating in today's webinar. ENGIE joined us as a member last year, and since then we've developed just a fantastic relationship, and we're finding new and unique ways to bring value to one another, as well as bringing value to the climate tech ecosystem. Events like this wouldn't be possible without ENGIE's support, so we're just so grateful for their alliance. If you aren't yet a member of CET and you would like to be, or if you just want to get more involved with our work, our marketing and communication manager, Amy Yano Fairbanks, will drop our contact information in the chats, and we welcome you to reach out at any time. We'd love to hear from you. So I'll be leading us through today's conversation, kicking things off with introductions, followed by a group discussion with our panelists. Toward the end of the hour, we're going to be bringing in Chris Tennyson. He is the Assistant Regional Superintendent from School District 47, and he's going to tell us about his experiences working with community solar. And then to cap things off, we're going to turn it over to CET's Managing Director, Ian Adams, who will take us through audience Q&A before closing out the hour and giving you a sneak peek into next month's webinar. If you have questions that come up for our speakers during the session, please pop them into the Q&A window on your Zoom screen, and then toward the end of the hour, we're going to get to those. So with all of that out of the way, let's shift things over to our panelist introductions. We have Madeline Klein from ENGIE, John McIntyre from American Family Institute, and Steph Speirs from Solstice. So if you could all turn on your audio and visual at this point. Let's start with Madeline. Do you want to kick us off with your intro? And then from there, we can jump to John and Steph.
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Madeline Klein. ENGIE is the company that I work with, and thank you for that very nice introduction, Susie. So ENGIE, for those of you who don't know, is a global energy company. Our global headquarters are in Paris, France, and our North American headquarters are in Houston. We have business platforms across the clean energy ecosystem and renewables generation, building management systems, transportation infrastructure, et cetera, in about 30 different countries. I work on policy and market strategy with the distributed renewables team here in Chicago. So we develop on-site rooftop solar and energy storage projects for large commercial and industrial customers all across the country.
Madeline, you there? Okay, I think Madeline may be having some technical difficulties, so let's move on to, we can come back to her introduction. John, you wanna kick us off with yours?
Sure. Hi, everybody. John McIntyre. I'm with the, I'll give you the long name, the American Family Insurance Institute for Corporate and Social Impact. So we were set up a couple of years ago out of our parent company, American Family Insurance, as a social impact venture fund. We were set up as a public benefit corporation with a mission to close equity gaps in America. So we all know there's lots of equity gaps in our society, and we're targeting 4 particular societal issues that we're going after, which include economic opportunity for all. We also look at, within healthcare, what we call healthy youth development, that looks at access to healthcare for youth and young families and so on. We also look at academic achievement, because we know that's such a predictor of people's ability to grow and accumulate wealth and so on. And then the last area, which is relevant today, we look at what we call resilient communities. So we're looking at the climate change issue and investing in great startups that are bringing solutions to the market in clean tech, climate tech, and water management. And Solstice is one of those companies. So really very pleased to have worked with Solstice over the last year and featuring Steph here today.
Awesome. What a great segue for Steph.
Thank you, Susie. Thanks, John. Very, very happy to be working with both American Family Institute as well as ENGIE. My name is Steph Speirs. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a community solar company called Solstice. We're connecting households and businesses to community shared solar farms in their area. And then for the life of the project, our software is managing all the customer experiences that people have with their solar farm. We also have a nonprofit that's entirely focused on low income access to community solar. And our mission and why we exist is to get affordable clean energy in the hands of every American. And we want to put solar energy in the hands of people who have been most excluded, so traditionally low income and BIPOC populations.
Awesome, thanks. And we're gonna get into that in a little bit. So the first question was actually for Madeline, but I have a feeling Steph can take this one on, so I'm gonna put her on the spot. But over the years, we've heard community solar described in many different ways. And just for the purpose of grounding today's conversation, Steph, can you just give us a working definition of what community solar means to you?
Yeah, for sure. So in the sense that we're coming here and talking about it today, community solar is an industry that sprung up to solve a problem where most people cannot put solar on their own rooftop. And our research has found that 4 out of 5 Americans are locked out of the rooftop solar market because they're a renter or a condo owner, there's a tree covering their roof is facing the wrong way, it's made out of the wrong materials, etc. And so community solar means that there's a centralized solar farm, and you can imagine that it's built on agricultural land that's not used for agriculture, or a brown field, or former landfill or municipal land. And the electricity from that farm is flowing back to the grid, and subscribers can sign up for a portion of that farm's solar power. And the benefit of the solar power shows up as a credit on their monthly utility bill. So to the ordinary household, they don't have to put anything on their home. They're buying a portion of the energy production from a local solar farm. They know where the power is coming from. They know that by signing up for the farm, they're creating additionality, meaning the clean energy farm gets built because they signed up. And then the best value proposition is the fact that you're not putting anything on your home. You're actually not paying upfront for anything. It's a subscription model. You're just paying for the power that's produced by your share. And in most states, you're getting a guaranteed discount on your electricity bill. So guaranteed discount on your electricity bill, not putting anything on your home, not paying anything upfront. This is the most affordable and accessible clean energy for most people.
Right. Okay. So hopefully that helps ground us all in what we're talking about today. So, we've talked about, some of the benefits already, but let's really dig into why this sector of solar matters. What's the big deal about community solar? Starting off with John, why are investors so interested in this space? And then in particular, why is it interesting to you and AmFam?
Yeah. So as I described, we're a social impact funds. We're double bottom line. We want financial returns like every venture fund, so we can, sustain our fund and scale it so we can invest in more startups. But the value proposition that Steph just described kind of hits on both those things. We think it's a great business model, no money down, access to solar, actually save on your electric bill, do something good for the earth. I mean, fantastic value proposition. So that's, a winning business model, we believe. And Steph and her team are executing on that. But also, of course, the social implications of that. So when we look at clean tech generally, if we can reduce the amount of carbon and greenhouse gases we're putting into the environment, obviously that benefits us all because we have to get down to zero carbon that we're contributing into the atmosphere, or even negative in the decades to come, or we're in real trouble for our children and our grandchildren. So there's that big societal issue. But then we look at specifically communities of need, low to moderate income communities, and how can this solution help them? So Steph just kind of outlined that. They've done some very innovative things around how people can get into solar with no money down. They've come up with some of their own credit scoring capabilities and so on. So we're not 100% reliant on FICO scores and those types of things. So that's the type of innovation we're looking for in companies we invest in, both on the social side and on the business model side.
Great, great. I'm going to take a quick step back. I see we have Madeline back. Madeline, can you hear us? One second, she's still connecting.
I think Luis is also joined, who's the head of ENGIE North America, just DG.
Yes. Hi, guys. I was
Hi,
texting with Madeline is experiencing some technical trouble, so I volunteered to fill in while she fixes it. So I'm here. Nice. Hello, everybody. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Luis.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so Luis, Madeline got caught off at her intro, and she was just telling us a little bit about ENGIE. You want to give us a quick introduction of who you are and your role at ENGIE and how ENGIE is approaching community solar?
Yes, absolutely. So I lead the distributed renewables team. We're basically doing, as Madeline, I think, was mentioning, solar and solar plus storage projects in distributed scale, both behind the meter and in front of the meter projects. So that's how we, that's how we came to participate and to community solar. It's totally a part of the things and the opportunity that we see as a growing opportunity. So we're looking at it, and we're trying to develop projects both in Illinois as well as in other states that support this type of programs.
Great. And we're on the question of what's the big deal about this space? Why is this space important to ENGIE? You could argue that it's a lot easier to pursue commercial and industrial solar and work with one large corporate client. But why does this space matter to you, and why are you pursuing it?
Yeah, I think this space checks all the boxes of our broader mission. We, of course, if we wanted to do, and people forgive me for saying this, but if we want to do quote unquote the easy thing, we would just be doing, 200 megawatt grid scale projects and that's it. But that's not how we view things. We want to be a player in different types of projects. We see a lot of value in distributed solar as well, and it just aligns, I think, generally with the mission of ENGIE. We don't use this so much anymore, but definitely the company was we were always thinking about the 3 Ps, so the profit, the planet, and the people, right? So I think community solar is just a great example of how these things come together.
Yeah, great. Those 3 Ps that Luis is, it's called the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. A lot of mission-driven organizations try to focus their strategies around that, and community solar seems to be just a great opportunity to align your business with that triple bottom line strategy. Madeline, do we have you back?
Yes, I am so sorry. My computer hasn't quit on me for no reason like that ever, and it decided to do it today during this webinar. So I apologize. I'm back on my phone now, and hopefully you can hear me too.
We can hear you. We can see you. So yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for hopping back on.
All right. Good.
Great.
If I could just add one thing to what Luis said and get back into the conversation here. For our customers, we work with, as I mentioned before, commercial and industrial, public sector entities, and many of them have really bad roofs. In order to justify putting a long-term solar array on your rooftop, you got to have a pretty brand new roof, and it's got to be in pretty good condition. And that's not the case for a lot of our customers. And so, the other motivating factor here is that we like to be able to offer what our customers need and value. And when it doesn't work on the roof, community solar provides an awful good alternative.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So, we're talking about why, this is going to be relevant to potentially C&I customers, why developers are interested, why investors are interested. How about from a community perspective? Steph, you talked a little bit about it in your introduction, but what is the appeal for local communities, either for residents or small businesses? Why are they interested in it? And then, is it environmental responsibility? Are the residents asking for it? What are you seeing?
So there's a study coming out of Yale University that asks, why does anyone sign up for solar? And they found that it's actually not solely the financial incentives or the environmental reasons. That the number one reason why people signed up for rooftop solar in that study is because everyone around them was doing it too. Their friends and neighbors were doing it too. And there's a study from RARE, which is the Behavioral Economics Institute that works on climate studies. And RARE found that the number one reason why anyone takes climate-friendly actions is because everyone around them is doing it too. It's not because they believe in climate change, and it's not because they're a particular political party. And so there is this idea, this insight here that clean energy is contagious. It spreads through network effects. And so that's what we're in this really important moment in history in which people are recognizing that climate change needs to be worked on urgently, that we have structural inequalities in our economy, and that community solar can be an effective way to address both of these. Community solar is not going to be a silver bullet because there is no silver bullet in climate, but it's a really important part of the solution set that allows access to people who have never had access before, allows people to buy clean energy at a guaranteed discount, and that just hasn't been available to them. So when we're seeing households sign up, they're really excited to sign up for a product that they can finally access because they didn't realize clean energy was for them. When we see businesses sign up, they definitely want to save money on their electricity bills. But with our partnership strategy, we actually partner with organizations and businesses in the community who also spread the word about community solar to their members. And so we've had employers spread community solar to their employees as a way of being an environmental steward. And we've partnered with municipalities that have spread community solar to their citizens as a way of spreading the benefits of energy savings to everyone in their community. And so there is this fundamental, yes, we can support climate change mitigation, we can support local clean energy, we can save money on our electricity bills, but there is this network effect that's really coming into play when we see people signing up and then helping everyone around them sign up too.
That's great. Talking a little bit more about residents who have not traditionally had access to this type of renewable energy before. How are you reaching lower income communities or communities in need?
Yeah, so when we are looking at who has traditionally benefited from clean energy and even community solar, it's often higher income homeowners still, environmentalists, which tend to be more affluent, which tend to be more white. And so if we're looking at just Chicago, we kind of got to get away from the Northern Shore only communities and make sure that we're also reaching folks on the South Side. And what we found is one way to do that is to partner with organizations who are active in areas that are low income or BIPOC. And because there's a lot of distrust in communities from parties coming in trying to sell them things, because in the past they have been cheated by companies. And so trust is earned, it's not entitled, and we operate on a currency of trust. It's not really the currency of electricity. And so to earn people's trust, we have to go through trusted messengers. As an example, in Chicago, we started working with a local nonprofit called Chicago Hopes for Kids. And they're really working on homelessness and youth education, and they're serving 16,000 homeless students in the Chicago public schools a year. And by partnering with them, we have helped them get a fundraising campaign in place where we share some of the revenues that we're seeing from the project with Chicago Hopes for Kids, and they're spreading the word to their members, the families they work with, the beneficiaries they work with, in order to get access of community solar to those communities. And so by these wealth sharing initiatives, which, by the way, ENGIE, who we're partnered with in all of our Chicago projects, we partner with them because they are as community driven as we are. And they have been incredibly pioneering in community organization partnerships as well throughout the city of Chicago, and kind of in this joint manner in supporting each other and having these shared mission of community engagement and community empowerment. It imbues the project with more trust. And so Chicago Hopes for Kids is one of the organizations we've been working with. We also work with Opportunity House. They're an organization that works with adults with disabilities. We worked with an organization called Easter Seals. They're an organization that works with children with autism. And so by going through these organizations that have trust in the community, we can reach people who would otherwise be really skeptical of something like community solar.
Sure, sure. That's really interesting. You know, when I think of community solar traditionally, I think of just it being a lot more transactional and not necessarily building on that community piece. So it's really interesting to hear about the engagement that's happening at the community level beyond just, you know, seeing an extra line item on your utility bill that's saying you're getting renewables. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later on when we bring Chris Tennyson into the conversation. I think he's going to have some interesting perspectives to share. So let's move on to our next question. You know, two areas of community solar and just renewables in general that are always changing our technology and policy. So let's take a couple minutes to dig into both of those areas, starting with policy, just because I know we have a lot of Illinois folks on the line and they're going to have a lot of questions about Illinois in particular. So I want to make sure that we focus on that. So Madeline, let's turn it to you for a few minutes just to talk about how is community solar evolving in terms of policy? What are you seeing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that the biggest trend in community solar market evolution is that the model is contagious and people like it. And so it becomes more available over time. There are about 20 states currently where there's some kind of community solar policy structure available, and that figure is growing each year. I would say another state sort of jumps on the community bandwagon and adopts legislation that enables the policy structure to get a community solar market going. In the Midwest right now, we have community solar enabled in Illinois, of course. Minnesota was actually the very first state to enable community solar in the Midwest. It was second, I think, only to Colorado. Colorado was the first in the country. There may be some other states that want to claim the mantle of the second, but Minnesota was certainly an early state to kick things off and get going. We have a couple new states on the list of Midwest states that may adopt community solar legislation in the near future. We have a bill introduced in Michigan, and there is a bill that is going to be introduced in Wisconsin. We understand probably at some point in this month or next. And then, of course, there are major changes proposed in Illinois in community solar right now. You know, I would say that I want to shout out to the Coalition for Community Solar Access, CCSA. They're a very effective advocacy organization, and their policy blueprint for community solar has really become the starting point for states that wish to adopt community solar programs. So they've grown over the years, and their influence has grown as well.
Great, great. You know, talking a little bit more about Illinois.
Sure.
Yeah, I know just internally we're having discussions about what's the latest. Can you give just a quick update for everybody? I know that, you know, there's more news coming in the days ahead, but just on where we're at right now.
Yeah, I was really hoping to be able to inform you all on the, you know, as a participant in this panel about what the General Assembly in Illinois had done in order to expand the Illinois Community Solar Program. Unfortunately, it's not a done deal yet. They, are actually considering legislation as we speak. You may have read about the omnibus energy package that is under discussion today in Springfield. It's got a lot of different components, and community solar is one of them. The community solar program in Illinois first kicked off in 2019. Program opened, and it was immediately oversubscribed. About 200 projects were able to sign up for the adjustable block program. And there's about 1,500 projects that are currently on the wait list. And so that program needs more capacity in order to meet the demand for community solar among Illinois subscribers, residents, businesses, schools, organizations, et cetera. So, one piece of the omnibus proposal that the legislators are talking about today would expand the size of the program, allow more projects to move forward, and then it would do some, there's some sort of technical cleanups that they're also going to put in place that will, for instance, make it easier for customers that are on a competitive energy supply rate. They're buying power through an Aries rather than one of the utilities. It'll make it easier for them to subscribe to community solar. So the Senate theoretically is voting on this bill today. Theoretically, the House will consider it tomorrow. So this could be a very near-term win, fingers crossed, and we'll be able to see the program really flourish in the years to come.
If only we had scheduled this webinar for Thursday.
Yeah, yeah.
But, hopefully by the time we send out the recording of this webinar with a thank you note and information on our next webinar, we're going to also be able to share some good news tomorrow. So if we learn any more between now and then, we'll keep everybody posted. Mm-hmm. So Madeleine, you mentioned that there's a lot of activity going on in the Midwest beyond just Illinois. Why do you think the Midwest has become so focused on community solar? Is it like, kind of a rising tide situation, like what Steph was talking about, about more people wanting to get in and states seeing, their adjacent states getting involved, or is it just, policymakers moving forward faster than other states? What's the reason that the Midwest seems to be moving pretty quickly on community solar?
Yeah, well, this is a very policy-driven market. And so we have policymakers in the Midwest that are looking to do more to meet state climate goals or to increase the amount of clean energy that's available for residents and businesses in their state. So we've got strong leadership here in Illinois. We've got strong leadership in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota, and all those states are moving forward with all the above clean energy strategy. I mean, that's really what we know we need to do in order to meet climate goals. And so community solar is a really essential part of that. There's also growing recognition that distributed solar and storage can be a vital part of the distribution grid infrastructure. So it can create resiliency, can create reliability, it can create cost efficiencies on the distribution grid. And that's something that policymakers, including commissioners and legislators, are beginning to be more aware of. Utilities are certainly more aware of it than they were a couple of years ago. And so in addition to on-site solar and storage, community solar can be an important part of the distribution grid infrastructure. So there's lots of different pieces coming together. There's the environmental, there's the cost savings, and then there's the grid resiliency piece of it that's also sort of a topic of discussion today.
Great. And, I would add on to it, another component to that is technology. As things become more complex, there has to be innovations in technology to meet those needs. So that turns it over to the second part of this section, which is technology. And John, I'd like to pick your brain a little bit on, what sort of technology innovations on the solar landscape are interesting to you or other investors. Are there any specific technologies that you're seeing right now to help with resiliency, to help, with growing grid demands?
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot about, the need for more resiliency. And so at least with my fund, we're not doing, research and development type investments for the next batteries or that type of thing, but trying to accelerate adoption. And again, particularly for low, moderate income communities that have been not able to do this before. So I think unlike a lot of venture, which is technology driven as a social impact fund, we're trying to look at innovation beyond just tech, but also, as we've already touched on, the innovation around the business model and the financing. So a couple of our investments, like Solstice, we have another company we invested in called Block Power, which is upgrading the heating, air conditioning, and lighting of older buildings, doing the hard work that nobody really wants to do with these older buildings. And they have innovated with tech by bringing down the cost of assessing these buildings. Like if you send a couple engineers out to a building for a day, it's $5,000 right there. So how do you get that down to $500? Well, they're using artificial intelligence and they're building modern mapping technology to do that. But like Solstice, what really motivated me to invest in them is not just that part, but they too have come up with a financing plan where you have to put little or no money down to update your entire building. You do get into a long-term contract to pay for the heating and air conditioning upgrades, but there's a payback period. And so everybody saves in the long run. And then you can convert to clean energy. You can use solar in a building that currently has boilers and is burning gas or oil or something like that. So I think it's that package of innovation that we're looking for right now to speed up the adoption across the United States. So I'll put a plug in for Bill Gates' book. If you haven't read it, it's worth reading. Bill is really good at looking at all the numbers and saying by 2050, we have to get to zero or negative carbon. And the only way we can do that is, yes, innovation on tech, but a lot of it is business model innovation. So we speed up adoption of these things. So you have to take that kind of holistic point of view, I think, today.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, Clean Energy Trust is very focused on early stage technology and making sure that there's going to be new and emerging technologies that help bring a positive environmental impact faster. But there's also the deployment piece, which, we need folks like you, like Solstice, like Block Power on the ground, deploying as quickly as possible the current technologies that we have, and together they complement each other to really make that positive environmental impact.
I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, we need to double, triple, quadruple, 10x adoption of solar in this country and the world. So otherwise, we're not going to get there with the tech we have today. So it's really critical.
Right. Yeah. And then you think about, other emerging technologies that, ultimately do rely on renewables, the amount of renewable deployment that you need to help, scale those like carbon capture. There's just not enough renewable out there yet. So the more activities that we're seeing through companies like Solstice and ENGIE, the more beneficial it is for those new technologies. So then, Madeline, Steph, on the actual technology piece on the ground in installations, what interesting technologies are your teams using? We had some questions on agrivoltaics, combining community gardens with solar arrays. We had some questions on the latest on bifacial panels. Is there anything that you can tell us about the technologies that you're deploying that might be interesting to folks here?
Yeah, I'll start with that and then kick it off to Steph. We are using bifacial panels. We have found that there's a substantial increase in productivity from bifacial panels, and that's something that we started to do within the last 2 years or so. We're using trackers. Trackers also increase the productivity of the systems in ways that are helpful. I would say that one of the most interesting things that ENGIE does as a matter of course on all of our community solar gardens, with one exception, I'll tell you about that, is that we install pollinator habitat, so native plants with pollinator habitat to support the bees and the bugs and the birds and the bats. We have found that, first of all, it's the right thing to do to help the ecosystems and to increase habitat for these essential organisms. Secondly, it helps us reduce our operating costs. The native seeds that we plant take a little bit more work in the first couple of years until the vegetation is germinated. And then after that, it's pretty low maintenance. We don't have to bring mowers out there as often. We don't have to use pesticides. We just don't have to intensively maintain the site like we would if we were installing turf. And so this has been a real win-win for the environment and for the company to just commit to pollinator habitat for all of our community solar gardens. There's another benefit, which is that our communities like it. The landowners love that we are planting plants that rejuvenate the soil, so that 35 years from now, if they want to replace the solar with an agricultural product again, we've got nice fertile soil for them to go back to. The communities like it because it's pretty and it's good for the environment. And so this has been a real win. You know, it's sort of funny to call flowers and wildflowers technology, but from our perspective, it truly is, because it helps us to accomplish the goals that we have for these gardens.
And whereas ENGIE is working on the development side of that technology, Solstice is really working on the community education and enrollments and the customer management piece. And so our technology is really a software platform that is making it easier for people to sign up for community solar. We actually started out just doing the education piece, going out to communities and talking to people about what community solar is and making sure they were aware of their options. But we were using other people's software, and it was sometimes taking some people, especially older folks or people who weren't as familiar with the internet, an hour to sign up for community solar on some other software platforms. And you know, sometimes ENGIE or the utility system is not known for the best software in the world or the best user experience in the world. And so we set out to create software that was easy for people to sign up. 5 minutes, then you could have a community solar subscription. And another piece of our technology in terms of making it easier for people to sign up is to get away from using the FICO credit score requirements that John talked about that are used in a lot of projects across the country to qualify customers for either rooftop solar or community solar. And so we invented something called the ENERGY score, and it's based on your utility repayment history and other demographic data rather than your credit history, because your credit score doesn't measure whether you pay your utility bills on time or your cell phone bills on time or your rental bills on time. It pretty much only is measuring your mortgage or your credit card bills. And so, you know, the FICO credit scores are also discriminatory against people that don't own homes and can't have a lot of access to credit, like low income customers, like BIPOC populations. And so by creating a new score based on utility repayment history, we found that our score has better data science. It's more accurate at predicting who pays their utility bills on time. And it's also more inclusive of low-income customers who would have been locked out if we had used FICO credit scores. So just like John is talking about, you have to build the innovative product, which ENGIE is doing, but you also have to make sure that the distribution and the financing allows for people to access that project. And so across the ecosystem, different entities have different parts of creating the solution set for making it more accessible to people.
That's really interesting. And my next question was actually going to be on risks and challenges. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you developed this user experience and what kind of challenges you faced with either, you know, utilities or regulators as you were building it.
Yeah, so, you know, every state has different consumer protection laws. Some states like Illinois require consumer disclosures to be signed so that it's absolutely certain the customer knows what they're signing up for. And that's really a vestige of sometimes the retail electricity industry, where energy companies were signing up people for rates that they didn't realize were premium rates and they were paying more, and they had class action lawsuits. So really at the heart of it is, how do we protect the consumer? How do we do the best thing for the consumer and treat them fairly and give them all the information possible about something like community solar? Once you know what community solar is, it is a very good product that gives you a great value proposition, but lots of people don't know what it is. Lots of people don't know who to trust in this space. And so building a software platform that is accessible to people in all senses of the word helps address that problem. You know, when we were doing our first low-income projects, we realized that internet penetration was actually really low. And we had to rebuild our entire platform in other languages because there were a lot of non-native English speakers who couldn't access our platform. And so it was a learning process. We had to create options for Spanish and really reach people where they are at in order to do the hard work of making sure this is more accessible. In terms of testing, you know, we test our platform user interface on users. Our users include the developers we work with, like ENGIE, who have their own login, as well as the end user households who are managing their community solar subscription in our platform, paying bills, seeing how their community solar share has been helping the environment. All of that is the result of a lot of user testing and user experience, A/B testing as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting. User experience is not what would come immediately to my mind when thinking about deploying community solar. It wouldn't have registered to me about how thoughtful you have to be. So it's really fascinating to hear, you know, everything that goes into bringing it to customers and making it really easy. So, you know, we're talking a little bit about, you know, some of the challenges that you know, folks in this industry are facing. John, from an investor's perspective, you know, what challenges do you have when investing in this space, and how do you de-risk some of the investments that you might make?
Yeah, well, obviously, there's inherent risk with any investments and startups. So, you know, you do the regular things that venture investors do, evaluating the team and the product and the market and all those things. What's really been fun for me, quite frankly, and special in meeting founders like Steph is, you know, really starting with, are they mission driven? So do they have a core belief system around wanting to change the world? And then they've figured out something through their life experience about a need in the marketplace. For instance, I think Steph worked overseas for a number of years and then decided to come back to the US and create Solstice to meet this market need that's out there. So kind of starting with that, it kind of talks to the character, of course, of the founding team and so on. And then from there, you look at the business model and so on. But we do seed investing and A-round investing. And so at that early stage, we expect there's still be quite a bit of market risk about acceptance of this product or not. And a lot of the startups we invested in last year, of course, went through a lot of turmoil like the whole world did. And, you know, community solar in particular, when you think about it, we kind of had to step back from community last year because we couldn't be together physically. So that introduces real challenges to a business model that we wouldn't have anticipated when we first invested. But credit to Steph and her team, they figured out, you know, how to pivot with that situation. In fact, I'd say the company is growing faster now, probably because of that and what they had to figure out as far as their go-to-market to do that. So that's what you look at as an investor, your teams that are resilient enough to figure out whatever is thrown at them, including a pandemic, to pivot the company and grow.
Great, great. Well, you know, speaking a little bit more about Steph and the work that her team has done, you know, we'd like to bring in somebody who has been working with them closely since the pandemic. That is Chris Tennyson. Chris, if you want to pop on your audio and visual. Chris is the Assistant Regional Superintendent of District 47. He's going to share a little bit about how his district envisions community solar helping to benefit their community. So Chris, you want to just give a quick introduction, then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure, and thank you for asking me to be here today. I am the Assistant Regional Superintendent of Schools here for Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties in Illinois. Briefly, people ask me, what does that mean? In Illinois, we're kind of like the county sheriff's department for school districts. We work with and assist all the districts in our counties. We get them what they need. We help them to educate their kids, help support the teachers and the administrators. So I get the privilege of doing that job and supporting the 24 school districts that we have here in our 3 counties in the northwest part of Illinois.
Great, great. And so why is District 47 interested in pursuing community solar and working with Solstice and ENGIE?
So here kind of in the northwest part of Illinois, we're rural communities, a lot of farms in our communities, and in our communities, we're always looking at ways to do things better. We do have one of the things that was great. We do have a solar farm here in our area. ENGIE has an up and running solar farm here. So when they contacted me and talked to some of our superintendents about how to get some of our students interested in that business and what it can do for communities, it was really, really intriguing to me. And they sold me because of their program that they're going to offer internships to our high school students to come and work on the farm and learn the business. It was really intriguing to me. So when they mentioned that to me, that got me interested right away, because our job as educators, at least for me, I've taught at the high school level, been a high school principal and now regional superintendent. I want to try and help our students experience as many career opportunities as possible to find out what they're interested in and what they're passionate about. And there's just not been that exposure, to things like solar farms here in our area. So I was excited about that.
Great, great. So this is that triple bottom line experience that Luis was talking about way at the beginning when we first started of incorporating people, planet, and profit all together. And so you mentioned this internship opportunity. I know you're still working out the details of it, but can you tell us a little bit about how it's going to work?
Well, sure. It's really simple. Our office, which covers the 3 counties, is able to help promote the local solar farm with our families to let them know that it would be great for them to get interested and sign up if they'd like to. It's going to save them money. I mean, I about 20% on average for each household that signs up, and the households that sign up also get some other incentives from ENGIE. And then part of that is for every 100 households that we get to sign up to be involved in this community solar project, they're going to provide us with a paid internship for one of our high school students. So, when you're talking about one of my students getting that exposure for 8 weeks, working in the solar industry and getting paid to do it while they're in high school, I mean, it's a no-brainer for us. So it was easy for us to say, sure, we'll try and help get our families signed up and get those opportunities for our students.
Wow, that's really incredible. So, not only is this expanding community solar, but it's also, saving residents money and then, providing an education for students who, as Chris said, would not normally get exposure to this type of technology, this type of experience. So, what a fantastic program that sounds like. And hopefully we see more and more activities like this across the state and then across the country as well. Chris, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about how this is affecting you and your community. That was fantastic to hear. I do want to keep the conversation rolling along because I know we are coming up on time, and we have a lot of questions that have come through from our audience. So I'm going to turn it over to CET's Managing Director, Ian Adams, who's going to take us through some audience Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susie, and thanks to all of our panelists as well. Been a great conversation. Thanks for the questions as well as those are coming in. One was just quick on logistics. Yes, there will be a recording of the webinar that will be made available. One question came in was about storage. People are hearing more and more about sites in general, including solar plus storage. I think probably for Madeleine, are you seeing any or looking at storage involved with community solar projects, and how does that sort of play out from a when you're thinking about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll start by saying that all of our community solar projects in Massachusetts have integrated energy storage. ISO New England, so the transmission operator in New England, and the states in New England have gone pretty far down the road in creating the market structures that we need in order to monetize energy storage sitting alongside our community solar plants. And so they are operating to reduce the demand of the overall ISO New England system, so that the system operator needs to turn on fewer fossil generating plants. And so there's the combination of solar generation plus energy storage demand reduction can be a very, very powerful tool for cleaning the electric system. We've also got storage projects that are under development in Maine, also in ISO New England, and we're very much looking forward to the day when we can develop energy storage in some of our Midwest markets as well. The market structures are not as mature in the Midwest for energy storage, but it's an evolving process, and I am fully confident that within the next couple of years, ENGIE and all of our other solar developers in the region are going to be looking very seriously at energy storage.
Wonderful, thanks. Another question, we actually got a few questions related to customer acquisition costs. So I think, Steph, probably for you, obviously you've talked a little bit about your partnerships, but how do you think about sort of driving down customer acquisition costs over time?
Yeah, so the traditional ways that I think we've seen solar customers get enrolled for things like rooftop solar involve a lot of stranger to stranger contact, and things like door-to-door, cold calling, direct mail, yelling at you as you walk by in Home Depot. These are the tried and true ways of signing up customers. And they work, but they work at low single-digit conversion rates. And we're talking 1 to 3%. And that can get really expensive. That's why SolarCity laid off thousands of salespeople across the country when they merged again with Tesla. And so when we think about how do we spread solar as fast as possible, how do we generate demand for clean energy projects so that we can build more clean energy and solve climate change faster, it is going back to that network effect idea. 95% of Solstice's customers come from some sort of partnership or another. And it's because when we sign up people through that trusted messenger, our conversion rates are 50% and above. Compare that to that 1 to 3% conversion rate. And then when you look at not just conversion rates, but you look at costs, network effects have a much lower cost of customer acquisition than signing up someone at their door to door. And when you look at the number of days to close a customer, signing someone up through a trusted messenger has a 1/3 shorter time to close than signing someone up through stranger to stranger contact. So inherently, what we're talking about is lowering customer acquisition costs by working through people through trusted messengers, people that other people trust. And that lowers the time, that lowers the cost, that increases the volume without increasing really headcount to sign more people up. And I think Chris Tennyson is such a good example of what is possible. And that relationship was really forged by ENGIE. ENGIE had a long pre-existing relationship with school districts because, again, they have these very community-driven, mission-driven strategy. And so by kind of partnering with ENGIE, we were able to start to move the ball on some of the partnerships and relationships they had, as well as bring relationships we had. So in bringing our own relationships to the fore, we can widen the circle of the communities that are able to benefit from these projects.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know there was some discussion of the internship opportunities, but I'm curious, Madeline, what do the job opportunities look like in this space? And if someone's interested, we got a number of questions on this front as well. Someone's interested in this space, like what should they do? What should they be thinking about? What should their next steps be?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'll just share a little bit of a personal story. I got interested in joining the renewable energy industry because I went to a liberal arts college and I liked everything. I liked politics, I liked economics, I liked social science. I was really sort of an all of the above kind of person in school. And it was a really natural evolution to go into a career that was based on science and technology, but then also had all of these sort of soft science components as well. And so when you look at our company, I'm just, thinking in my head right now about the people that people, our Chicago headquarters. We have lots of engineers. We have architects. We have project managers that manage the construction components of the job. We have asset managers. We have operating and maintenance folks that are data scientists that really drive the make sure that our systems are producing what they're supposed to be producing over the long term. We've got lawyers. We have finance people, we have accountants, we have policy people like me, we have sales folks, we have developers, and then we have a lot of people that manage, that are managers in one way or another. And so it's a very interdisciplinary team that it takes to sort of put together a renewable energy project. It's a complex market. We love the complexity. We thrive on the complexity. Requires a lot of partnerships with great organizations like Solstice and the school districts. It's an excellent career path. We do have internships at ENGIE. For those of you that know students or early career people that are interested in careers in this area, please have them get in touch. We feel that training the next generation of leaders in the industry is one of our most important jobs, and we all take it very seriously. So thanks for that question.
Wonderful. I think we have time for one more quick question. Turn it to John. You mentioned Block Power and some of what they're doing a little bit differently. Do you see opportunities, to use community solar engagement as the sort of the beginning step for other product engagement? People who are interested in electrifying their homes and that sort of thing.
I guess potentially that could be a way you can go. I mean, you think of all the buildings we have out there and how they contribute to greenhouse gases, and so certainly with newer buildings or in your own home, you can do solar. You can get rid of your gas furnace and convert it to electrical systems. Heat exchangers haven't been popular, for instance, in the Midwest because of the cold temperatures, but the latest technologies actually can accommodate some of the coldest temperatures we get here in the Midwest. So putting all those things together, it's looking at a small building like a home, that's a good starting point. But now when you look at apartment buildings and say small commercial buildings and so on, it gets much more complex. And that's where you need the technology. That's where you may need several startups like this coming together and helping people figure out not only how to do it from an engineering point of view, but how to finance it. And that's where we get so excited about supporting these great startups.
Excellent. Thanks, John. So I think we're just about out of time. I wanted to thank everyone for attending, and thanks to our speakers, Madeline, John, Steph, Chris, and Susie for moderating, of course. Before you go, we wanted to share our next event, which is going to be on transportation, specifically how you decarbonize heavy transportation and shipping and that sort of thing. That's going to be on Thursday, July 29th. My colleague Amy is going to drop a link in the chat to that, and you'll also receive a follow-up email from this event that has more information there. I think that's the last word there, but we look forward to seeing folks there. Thanks everyone for attending, and I hope you enjoyed and have a great afternoon.